Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back, you help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
Local people. Local news and events. Local sports. Local matters. For all things Lloydminster area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Hey, welcome into the new Lloydminster Nissan, now located on Highway 17 South in our brand new building. And we're having some fun this month. It's still summer, so we've brought in a really fun summertime game called Beanbag Toss, or Cornhole, some people call it. And right now, when you purchase a vehicle here at the new Lloydminster Nissan, you get to play the Beanbag Bonanza for a chance to win some great prizes, gift certificates for parts, also gas, maybe some cash. So it's a perfect time right now to get in and purchase a vehicle here at the new Lloydminster Nissan because we have a lot of inventory. The lot is absolutely packed with new cars, trucks, and SUVs. So if you're looking for a vehicle right now, get into the new Lloydminster Nissan and find a place to park, come in and talk to us, and we'll make you feel at home here at the new Lloydminster Nissan. I'd like to welcome my co-host for the week. Maria Kokonas is co-hosting all week because Maria Days are coming up. So
this is my week.
This is Maria's week. This is your week. And our guest today is Mayor Gerald Aalbers. So it's great to see you both here. How was the weekend?
It was all right. It was a busy weekend for myself. But Maria, I can't keep up to Maria's lifestyle. Wow, I read about her in the newspaper, front page. The whole spread. And I'm so glad, Maria, for you and your family, you folks. I know your dad's story a bit, your family story, how you guys are such an integral part of this community in so many ways, and to hear that everything could have fallen into inner better shape, that you were back in business like a day and a half later, I believe, not even the next day. So hats off to the team, the fire department, as you've given them credit. Our firefighters are top notch. They did what they needed to do. Your Cisco driver, I'll tell you, if you haven't given him a big old kiss on the cheek, you better do that.
Actually. That poor man, I think he was accosted by a woman in her pajamas at 7:09. Thank you.
And the team of people and professionals in our community. When the call goes out, it's just it fills my heart too, as I know it filled your heart to know that the community stepped up and the call went out and everybody responded. And we can talk about the summer games here in a little bit, but this is one thing about the city of Lloydminster and surrounding area. People step up, and I'm so glad. Really
Thank
happy.
you. Yeah, and one more thing I want to mention is that I loved how all the trades were there the next day, or that day, sorry, not the next. There was no next day.
There was no next day. It just rolled on.
They just rolled in, and they all got to work, and nobody was fighting over, putting their name on the sign outside, where, Spiro's brought to you by whatever trades. They were all there, and I wasn't there because Jeremiah, my son-in-law, kicked me out. He said, "You can't be here.
Nope.
You're too emotional, and you need to leave." And I walked in the next day at 1:30, just after we had been given the go-ahead by Public Health. And I walked in at 1:30, and that's what we opened it for that day. So
that's awesome.
We're so thankful.
Did you know your Cisco driver? Like, would you even know his name or?
No.
Because they deliver twice weekly, right?
Yeah, but I never see him because he delivers
early
before we're even there.
Yeah.
So now I know what he looks like, and I'm thinking he wishes I wouldn't know.
Well, see, I used to work for Cisco, so it was back when it was Scott National,
right.
actually. And so,
Oh, that's old Kurt.
but when we used to deliver to Spiro's, it was over the noon hour.
Yeah.
So that's actually the first time I met Maria, was delivering groceries behind this, and you were in, of course, your old location there.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I remember those days when Kurt would come in and
you always greeted us though.
Yeah,
Like
for
you or
sure.
your dad was always
Yeah.
there, and you know, it's hard to find a place to deliver to over the lunch hour. Nobody
Yeah,
wants their
that's very
groceries at
true,
lunch
yeah.
hour because you're busier than,
Yeah.
you know, but as long as we put the food in the freezer for you and stuff
Yeah.
like that, it
Yeah.
was, like I remember your dad, how are you today? You know,
Always
Kurt.
checking in.
and
Yeah.
no matter how busy it was, always came to say hello. But
Well, and you know, sorry, speaking of my dad, that was a bit of a hard phone call to make because I had a lot of people saying, well, you're not going to phone your parents, are you? And I thought, well, you know, ordinarily if it was Spiro, I wouldn't because he doesn't do Facebook. But my mom, well, she does Facebook and she would have seen it she would have saw it.
because they're in Greece, right?
Yeah, they're in Greece, so I did have to make that phone call, and you know, they handled it really well. My mom was probably my biggest cheerleader that day. She was, you know, just you know, do what you need to do, let them handle it. You know, do you feel? Are you okay? You know, I appreciated that too because, you know, I wasn't okay.
But it really speaks to the unsung hero of those delivery people. And we
man.
talk about Cisco, Scott National. A friend of mine had a milk business and still has the milk business. And, you know, his drivers, he's out 3 o'clock in the morning starting to deliver milk in his route where they live and has done it for a number of years. And, you know, he's got keys, a wad of keys because he's got keys to everybody's place. And he's always the first in. So if they've had a fire or if there's a fire experience, theft, flood, whatever disaster is struck, they're the first ones there actually, and they don't even they have an interest in the business because they're a customer and they care about their customers. So hats off to the delivery teams that make sure that we have enough food stocked so Maria can prepare it, and all the other restaurants, the deliveries and all the things in the freight business.
And that there's another thing. There's another angle to this too. You know, our stuff was all carried out by BioClean. BioClean took everything out of our kitchen. It was gone. It was empty. And so you've got this. Yeah, we're opening tomorrow. It's going to be great. With what? So
Did you have to buy a new stove?
we didn't have to buy a new stove. Not yet, anyway. There's insurance as part of the rebuild is coming on.
Right.
You know, deck right away here. But thing is we had no product. So, you know, Jeremiah's saying we're opening tomorrow, and that's a whole nother gamut right there because we're opening with what? Cisco's not coming till Thursday.
Maria's got a new favorite.
I have a new favorite, craft dinner.
Mac and cheese.
So, you know what, Cisco, they sent, you know, our rep came in that day. She did a full restock, and our stock was delivered the next morning, or 4:30 in the morning. Not even on our run. They created a run for us.
Sent a truck.
That's what helps to be a good customer,
Yep.
pay your bills on time, I
Yeah,
guess.
probably.
Well, and relationship, because I remember
Yeah.
the Cisco rep was there when we celebrated at the restaurant with your family.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being there, and you know, when you have that relationship with suppliers, and I've had that pleasure of being on the other side of being a supplier, and it's kind of nice when a customer comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want you to come cook steaks with me for my customers because you're a trusted partner in the relationship."
Absolutely, yeah.
That's so important.
And you know, you're joking about mac and cheese, but let me tell you this. I worked at Bonanza for 7 years.
my God.
Oh, here
The
we go.
best.
And we used to get phone calls all the time from people saying, "What's on your hot dish today?" And if it wasn't macaroni and cheese, they were upset about it. That's how popular mac and cheese can be. So
Been around for a long time.
And we used to have something called a tuna casserole. That wasn't as popular. Let me just let me just say.
Let's go to the tuna melt.
Yeah. How was your Heritage Day yesterday?
Heritage
Even in
Day
the
was
rain.
Heritage Day was good. I would like to say great because people came out. There was families out. There was multiple generations out enjoying pancakes and sausage. Thank you to all the sponsors. I won't name them all, but it was great to see the contributions and the support from the community, both large and small. We had all the buildings were open that could be open, and then there was a tractor parade. It was a little early, and some of the equipment was cooperative, some wasn't, but you know, people were just enjoyed being out. And I feel for the Heritage Club because those folks put a lot of effort into one day. Blacksmithing demonstration, and he's got his forge just going, and the rain's coming down. But, you know, I think people had a chance to see, and hopefully you can go back and see those tractors. They may not be running, but they're there. There's some of the old stationary engines. And, you know, it's so hard to imagine for people that if you haven't grown up with that at all, and I had the pleasure, my dad collected a few of those, restored some of those himself. I got an appreciation of that. But if you've never been around to try and see water pumped with this belt on this thing that goes glong, 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 in the engine and those kind of things, and even a gas-powered wash machine engine. Wow, they used to wash clothes with a gas-powered wash machine. So those kind of things are always interesting. So hopefully, you know, next year, the sun will shine and we'll have a great day.
Yep. At least we didn't get what Calgary got.
Absolutely. You
Or
know,
some other places too. There was some, some flooding in Edson.
Edson got some flooding. I haven't. I didn't get a chance to talk to the mayor, but I wasn't even aware until I was leaving through the news last night. I went,
Old
"Whoa."
radio guy there, that mayor,
Yes.
Sahara.
Yep,
Kevin
absolutely.
Sahara. Yeah, but they really got it.
Yeah, they did.
And then Calgary, the hail.
Oh, the hail in Calgary. Wow,
I think
there
there's
was
some damage to the airport.
Yeah,
there was.
I saw that.
The building took substantial damage, I understand, the airport terminal and cars. There was a couple Corvettes, not that Nissan sells Corvettes, but there was a couple Corvettes that looked like they got perforated by the Capone family.
Yeah.
That brings you back to the days of Al Capone and machine guns.
Well, I saw I think the best comment that I saw was the leaking at the airport, and then the roof collapsed a little bit at the airport. And somebody said, "Does Calgary spend any money on infrastructure?"
Well, I'm not going to defend Calgary, but I will say those tiles, from experience, those tiles absorb a lot of water, but then they finally come down, and when they come down, you ever been hit with an 80-pound wet cheese noodle? That's what it's like being hit by with one of those tiles come down. When a 4-foot tile comes down from the ceiling, and it's soaked full of water, it's like 80 to 100 pounds.
There's nothing wow, wind can be scary at times too. What's the biggest storm you've ever been in?
Oh gosh,
Because I was in there was a tornado here back in '82.
I remember that.
And I was at Blackfoot. My cousins lived in Blackfoot, so
That's
we were
where it
visiting.
hit.
And it hit Blackfoot.
Yeah, it did.
And so we were in a trailer. Of course, we were in a trailer
course.
when the tornado hits. We were in a trailer. And I remember my uncle telling us to go to the back of the trailer and climb underneath the beds, is what he said. And as we were doing that, windows were breaking because there was a huge hail flying everywhere. So a lot of screaming, a lot of people screaming, a lot of glass breaking. But those hail balls were about the size of softballs. And my brother, who was out walking at the time when that
course.
storm hit, because it was such a hot day,
Yeah, it
muggy
was.
day, they ran for cover at a friend's house. And as he was going up the stairs, a hailstone bounced off of the porch and came up and got him on the chin. And so he had a bruise, like all around his lips and under his nose and right here for like a week from being hit by that hailstone. But I remember because I had one uncle on the phone and one that was looking out the window, and he said, "Joe, there's a tornado out here." Like the first thing he said was, "Bullshit. There's no way there is. Okay, kids to the back." Phone calls ended, and then that's when the bing. And I'd never even, what would I have been at the time? 9. So a tornado to me was like, what? But that's the biggest one that I've ever seen. How about you?
Well, I've can't remember a particular storm that I was in that was the worst. I've seen the worst. One of my roommates at the time in Saskatoon, I was going to university, he was at Diefenbaker Lake and parked on Gardner Dam when the storm came off the lake. And his car looked like a golf ball because it was dented so bad there wasn't a flat piece of car on it. There's that storm, and that was back, that would have been late 80s or mid 80s. And then at the family farm here about 10, 12 years ago, I missed the storm, but I was there 12 hours later, and when I got there, it smelt like we had just silaged an entire canola crop because there was nothing longer than an inch and a half. It took the bark off of trees. I've never seen a hailstorm do that, but there was no broken windows. There was a pile of dents on bins and buildings, but it just took the bark off the trees with the force of the wind, and I've never seen that before. That was a fairly nasty one, and the remnants are still there today. But I saw just sections of land, literally like somebody had silaged them, and there wasn't a thing left.
Well, we must be in the season of storms again, or in the month of storms, because I think, 37 years ago, last week, they didn't celebrate. You don't celebrate.
Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Black
Yeah.
Friday.
That was the tornado in Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
Tornado in
Yep.
Edmonton.
Yeah.
There was 3 years ago, and I love this. Somebody had said to me, well, we don't, these storms are new. We never used to see these storms. And somebody said, are you kidding? We used to see these all the time. Like, it used to storm almost every night. And then the next day it was sunny. But 3 years ago, I think we had a hailstorm here and a big wind storm. And I was headed to it actually hailed out Heather's Garden. I remember that.
Right. Yeah.
It hailed out Heather's Garden.
And that's the one thing about a storm. It can cut a swath, and one neighbor can be left, and the other neighbor totally destroyed. And it's just part of it. I've seen it where it follows a highway. It tends to, in where I grew up, it followed the highway. If it headed north, it took everything north of the highway, but south of the highway, didn't even know it was a storm.
Well, we were headed to the lake, and my brother texted me a picture and said, because I put my boat in water about that deep, just a little Sportster Sea-Doo boat, and he texted me and said, your boat's sitting on sand right now.
No kidding.
So I thought it got, blown in. And no, what happened was there was so much water, so much wind, it blew the water from one end of the lake to the other end of the lake.
Lifted your boat up.
Just set the boat, like there's no water left, so it just was sitting on sand. But the pontoon boat next to us was totally flipped over, completely flipped over. So when I got there, the water wasn't back yet. So the boat's just sitting on sand, and the people who had the pontoon boat next to us that flipped over, they're out there picking up knives, forks, all kinds of stuff from, trying to pick it up
man.
before that water comes back.
Yep.
And they actually did a pretty good job. I remember them picking up plates, like plastic plates that were in storage in that pontoon boat. So we can, and that was, I think that was about late July as well.
Yeah.
That hit. So late July, early August tends to be.
It's the time.
Yeah,
Hey?
it varies, right? I've seen them in as early as late May with hailstorms, and you can get them right until September, and depending on moisture conditions, right, and the climate, just everything lines up. If the stars line up, look out, because lots of guys have had a great COP and didn't quite finish, I'm afraid.
Well, we're going to take a break here right away, and then we'll come back and take a look at some of what's going on in our community. Superior Water is proud to provide you with the purest drinking water possible. And I drink it because I like the taste. It is Superior Water, the best water in Lloydminster. And at just $3 a jug, you get a great, consistent taste. And don't forget ice for that Crown Royal. Did I mention I might have drank some Crown Royal this weekend?
Not a word.
The ice for that Crown Royal is just $2 a bag. 2 locations in Lloydminster, of course, besides Sheepskin Loft on 57th Avenue and the coin-operated location right by 7-Eleven, just off Highway 17 South. At Superior Water, water treatment is what they do, and they do it well. We'll be right back with Mayor Gerald Aalbers and my co-host, Maria Kokonas.
It's more than just taxes at LNA CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at LNA CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. LNA CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster. How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector, building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
Welcome back here at the new Lloydminster Nissan. Let's take a look at what is happening in the community and around the area. The Scottish Heavy events are coming to Big Manitou Regional Park on Saturday. The Carnage events feature all the classics, the Scottish Heavy events like hammer throw. And by the way, Canada just won a gold medal in the Olympics for hammer throw. And interesting, have you seen that guy that won the hammer throw? He looks like Burton Cummings. And
A little bit, yeah.
somebody said on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I didn't know that Burton Cummings was competing in the Olympics. And Burton Cummings saw it and actually replied, "It's almost like I don't even remember being there, and I hardly broke a sweat," he said. So, but we're going to find out more about the Scottish Heavy events when Toby Cullen joins us here on Thursday. There's also lots of fun stuff for the kids out there at Big Manitou Lake, like bouncy houses and face painting, as well as beef on a bun for supper and salad with that supper. And the events run 11 to 4, supper 5 to 7, and the beer gardens go as well. Hard to believe that Wagon Week is back next week already in Lloydminster. The new Lloydminster Nissan CPCA Finals will take place August 14th to 18th at Halstead Downs. A CPCA champion will drive off in a brand new Pathfinder from the new Lloydminster Nissan.
Ooh, new Pathfinder.
And that Pathfinder is on display at the Lloydminster Exhibition right now. They've done a pretty good job of it.
And don't forget the cabaret on Saturday night, which features Donnie Lee along with local favorites, Jordan Pollard, and the Dirt Rich Band. Tickets are just $20 in advance and $30 at the door.
That's going to be a big party for $20.
It's
Absolutely,
a big one, yeah.
absolutely. That would be a rocker.
And
This is my favorite.
The 33rd Annual French Butte Museum Festival is this Sunday, and the theme this year is the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. The parade goes 1:30. Of course, there's also entertainment, roast beef supper, and loads of fun for all ages with balloon animals and face paintings, and of course, lots of classic demonstrations that go as well.
And I think people really need to take a notice of that. It's the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. And gosh, everybody knows somebody that served in the military. Maybe your grandfather served in the Second World War or something like that, or a grandmother. And, you know, the Air Force has got a very proud tradition. And as Christine and I were driving across Saskatchewan this last week, I pointed out one of the old training bases of the Commonwealth Air Training. And Canada played such a huge role in the Second World War, and I don't think people realize that history either. You know, the hangars in a few of the airports, even North Battleford's hangar, was still standing at the old airport, and that was a training base as well. And they're scattered all over Saskatchewan. I think there was 14 or 24 bases. I apologize, I don't know the number off top, but you know, that's the Air Force has had a great history in Canada, and I hope people take a little time to recognize it.
Well, Maria, you're the mediocre farm wife. Maybe you should take this next one.
Open farm days are back in Alberta this August. And once again, Chatsworth Farm will be taking part on Saturday, August 17th. It's an opportunity to see where your food comes from. Take a guided tour of the yard. Enjoy some of the music and see some of the equipment in action. Chatsworth Farm is just north of Vermilion. And I am a mediocre farm wife.
Yeah, we'll have to have a whole section on that sometime later on to talk about this mediocre farm wife.
At Rotary this morning, they said, "You are none of that. You are not mediocre." That's right. Nobody calls me mediocre.
Not at all.
And I'm not a farm wife. I needed a sweatshirt. I was at Farmstead Market and more in Kidscotty. And I giggled so hard when I saw this. I didn't even look at the price, as I usually don't. Anyway, that's nothing new. And I just said, I'm buying this. And everybody thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I still think it's hilarious.
Well, I think that it's the shirt does not speak well for farm wives, because we know any farm wife,
They are not mediocre.
They are not mediocre. They are multitasking at all times.
This speaks so well for me, though.
It really does. Actually, there's going to be a lot of people want those.
I know.
That's a good
That's my
advertisement
new
for
merch.
Farmstead Market and
I
more
know.
and Kidscotty.
You can get this at Farmstead Market and more in Kidscotty when you're getting your secret sauce and your pizzas and all your good stuff from Spiro's.
Yeah.
This is actually my merch.
Oh, there you go.
It's like, that would be like me wearing a sign that says, good mechanic.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Maria Days start Thursday. They run through Saturday with local vendors, entertainment, and a pancake breakfast. And Maria's, actually, I wrote this last week, so it says on the screen,
week.
Maria's here to talk to us next week, but actually it's this week. So certainly excited. Got Jordan Pollard coming.
We
before.
do. I know.
Let's stop there. What day is pancakes? I want to know what day I need
Saturday.
to be. Oh, okay. Not here. Got to be away. Christening of a new granddaughter. What can I
Oh,
say?
that's fair.
Oh, yes, yes.
Is
yes.
her name going to be Maria?
I'm just going through.
There is a lot of names.
Yeah, there's a lot of names. I'd have to check. It is Marie. Edith Marie.
Okay,
There
fair
you go.
one.
Close
you can
enough.
go.
Yeah,
That's pretty
thank you.
close.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
But Maria, you were saying that you have like 45 vendors coming on Thursday.
Yeah, we do.
Ooh, I'll
we
be
do.
there for that.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Does that say mediocre mayor then? Is that the shirt that I need to wear?
I wouldn't wear that.
Okay.
You're looking for some good stuff this year.
Okay.
Do not
All
wear
right.
that.
Yeah, you get enough bad press as it is. I wouldn't push the pedal down on that too much.
Awesome mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we've got 45 or so vendors. I've lost count, and I'm so excited. I was at the Sandy Beach market on Sunday, and everybody I saw was saying, "We'll see you next week. We'll see you next week." So I was excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Jordan Pollard on Friday outside in our parking lot again, and she's just making advancements in her career. So it's really great to have her. I'm super excited.
You know, I saw a picture of her the other day, and I said to Heather, like, is that really Jordan Pollard? Like, when's the last time I guess I haven't seen Jordan in a while because she has grown up.
She is.
Yeah.
You know, like I still remember
Yeah.
as a little girl singing at the pancake breakfast,
Yep.
right? Just
Yeah.
trying to get some exposure. And now she's taken her stage performance to the next level.
And she is so nice.
Yeah,
like,
she is.
just she reached out to us this past week, and just
You know why?
so
Because her mom
genuine.
is a mediocre farm wife.
Yeah. I'm like, sorry, I wore this shirt. This only applies to me, okay? This is my merch.
Yeah, careful, Kurt. You may find out what a mediocre farm wife
All
delivers
the
for
farm
lunch.
wives, all the farm wives in Lloydminster and surrounding area, you are not mediocre. You are
Absolutely not.
amazing. I'm wearing this to. I'm sliding myself, okay?
Next time I see Darwin, what the heck are you doing calling my wife mediocre?
Yeah, there we go.
But another Chase the Ace draw already tomorrow night at the Lloyd Exhibition. See how fast time flies when it's a short week? Like all of a sudden it's here. Jackpot is $53,000. Tickets $10 each with a chance to improve your odds by purchasing 3 for $25, 8 for $50, and 20 tickets for $100. So those draws go on Wednesday nights at the new Lloydminster Nissan Exhibition Grill, and that's at 7:30. They're live streamed as well, and they have a steak supper every Wednesday night with that as well. So support your Lloydminster Exhibition. And BioClean Disaster Services is committed, certified, reliable, and they'll help you get your life back. And Maria, your testimonial
I will
to
read
that.
the rest of this. BioClean Disaster Service, 1-833-246-8326. Call them if you need them.
It's about taking care of your property and taking care of your belongings. But more than that, it's about when I talked to Jody, he said, I want you to talk to my customers. I'm not going to tell you anything about my service. You just talk to my customers and you can build your advertising around that.
Well,
and the thing I hear the most, they kept me up to date. I knew exactly what was happening.
And you know what? I told Jody this Thursday. We met on Thursday, and I said, I just want you to know that your group of people that were working for you handled me so well. They were so kind. And, you know, they didn't tell me every single thing that was happening because I didn't need to know. But, you know, we had to throw everything out. And they didn't say, look, lady, we got to throw, it's all going. Bring in the back loader here. It's all going. Beep, 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 beep. You know, they didn't do that. These 3 ladies, they said, so here's the thing. This pail of rice, the lid wasn't quite on it very well. And so we're going to just probably have to throw this away. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you go ahead, just throw it away. And she says, but there's another one. Oh, yeah, you just toss them. And in my mind, so we lost, you know what? And I think I even said this. So what? We lost 10 kgs of rice. Big deal. And later, then Jeremiah was like, you need to leave. And then later that day, I said, so they thrown away much? And he says, you have no idea. So I thought, I better stay away. But I did mention to Jody that they handled me so well. And I think they're like that with everybody.
It sounds like when we talk to customers, not only Lloydminster's local company, they're also the largest.
Yep. Well, I just got a question to ask Maria. I hope the recipe books of Spiro's lemon rice soup did not get taken out in this.
No.
Good. I'm glad. The recipes are always
Yeah.
important, right? The recipe is,
And, you
is
know,
critical.
everything is intact. But I will say my dad he writes his memoirs every morning at the restaurant. And he's got a stack of books and papers and, you know. And I just sort of sat there because they were telling me all the stuff that went. And I sat down with Jeremiah and I said, what about Papu's writings? What about that? Because they would have tossed it, right? And he says, no, we kept it. It is very smoke damaged, but it will go in the bin of things in a separate, you know.
Yep, get aired out and
They'll fix it, yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll take another break. And when we come back, Maria and I are going to grill the mayor on some of the happenings locally and provincially and federally in just a few moments.
Jason Arden Associates Cooperators. We're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to give back to the communities that we live in. Thanks to the support of our clients in Lloydminster and area, in 2023, Jason Arden Associates has donated $40,000 to local nonprofits, charities, students, athletes, and other special events. How does your insurance company support our community?
At CK McKean Roofing, they understand what it took to put that roof over your head for your family. With over 20 years of experience under their belt, they strive to show you that with their workmanship and their integrity. Not all roofing companies are created equal, and that's why CK McKean Roofing encourages you to focus on your most important investments, your home and your family. CK McKean Roofing. Roofers do it on top.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner, and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
Wellings of Lloydminster is now offering 1 or 2 bedroom gorgeous villas for those who are 55 and over. They have their own little community, and they're under construction right now, building a beautiful clubhouse, which will kind of be the centerpiece for what they're calling is a community within a community. And this community for those 55 and over is for those who are a little bit worried about their health now. So going out to shovel when it's minus 40 isn't such a great idea anymore. Or cutting grass when it's plus 30 isn't really necessary anymore either, because you have somebody to take care of those things for you. Or maybe you're someone who is just starting to take a little bit more time for yourself. Go on vacations and you don't want to have to worry about the bigger house back home. That's exactly what Wellings of Lloydminster is all about, giving you more freedom. But remember, you're still living your independent life. You're still cooking your own meals. You have your own living space, and what a gorgeous living space that is. Call Darlene. Have a walk through one of their villas at 780-872-8537. Well, we welcome you back here inside the new Lloydminster Nissan, where my co-host is Maria Kokonas from Spiros, and she's hosting Maria Days this week. And Mayor Gerald Aalbers is with us this morning as well. And Gerald, I thought we'd jump right into it right off the bat. You just came back from SUMA, and you had some talks with the Conservative Party, the caucus in Saskatchewan. How did those talks go?
So I had a chance to attend, being a member of the executive of SUMA, which is the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association, that represents about 82% of the residents of Saskatchewan that live in northern villages, or northern communities, summer villages, towns, and cities. We sat down and had the opportunity to meet 12 of the 14 sitting members of the Conservative Party of Canada representing Saskatchewan. And as you can appreciate, one party represents the opposition party of federally represents all the ridings in Saskatchewan. And it was a really interesting conversation. One of the first items that was discussed is the campaign that SUMA has started, We Are Urban, and there was some discussion about why we did that, and it was to help them understand, as much as other people in the communities and surrounding areas, what goes on in an urban setting. You know, most urbans, and I would say about 97% or more of schools are in an urban setting, right? You'll find them in a village, a town, or a city. Hillmond is one of the few exceptions in this area from that perspective. Hospitals, post offices, fire halls, and things like that tend to be in an urban setting. But what's really interesting when you get to the federal level, there's only 2 urban settings in Saskatchewan. One's called Regina and one's called Saskatoon, because the federal government only acknowledges an urban center of over 100,000 people. So here we have Rosemary Falk as an example on the Saskatchewan side, representing 2 cities out of the 16 cities in Saskatchewan, Lloydminster and North Battleford, 3, Meadow Lake soon in the new riding. And it's not an urban riding, it's a rural riding. And we're trying to help our MPs, first of all, understand what's so important about that urban rural setting, because provincially it's a totally different definition versus the federal government, and we are by law a product of the provincial government. They make the legislation that determines what a city is, a town, a village, a summer village, or a northern community.
So it all comes back to money, I'm betting.
Part of it is around money, is around funding, because we receive funding from the provincial government on a regular basis. We also receive funding from the federal government, and that was one of the discussions. The what used to be known as the gas tax rebate, that came back, and we use it for streets and improvements of infrastructure, and it's changed its name. And the federal government's put some restrictions on that, which is a little concerning, very concerning actually for us as municipal leaders, because anytime someone says, well, this is where the money has to go, it gets a little tough, because if we need a new wastewater treatment plant, which we went through, if we need a new multi-use facility like we're building at the Snovis Energy Hub, or streets out front need a major work, or the water and sewer underneath, that's everybody's favorite, water and sewer underneath the piping. And we were talking about Calgary a little bit ago. Those are important things to us. But right now, the federal government has housing as their main thrust. And I feel for municipal leaders in bigger centers, because without water and sewer, you can build all the houses you want down the street. But if there's no water and sewer getting there, people that live in those houses can't use the house. So it's a challenge, and sharing that with the federal caucus representatives, I think it was very important.
Did you have a chance to talk to the Conservative Party about the carbon tax?
Absolutely. It's the carbon tax is one that, one of the uniquenesses, and I'll back up just a little bit if I can. People often ask, well, what's your political views? And I go, well, I think I'm fiscally responsible, and I guess that makes me a little bit fiscally conservative. I also have a social heart, I hope, and it's on a social conservative. What that definition? But I can't disagree with where the federal government, or I disagree where the federal government's taken carbon tax, and at first as a mayor, I have to say they broke a promise to us that they were going to give a rebate back to you as the community, all taxpayers. We were supposed to get a portion of that carbon tax back, and it hasn't happened. And how long have we had carbon tax? And the idea of here especially, we have to run furnaces, we have to run vehicles. Carbon is a huge part of it. Agriculture, right? There's no farmers that are farming with horses, right? They're farming with equipment that burns diesel fuel and growing great crops and cattle and things like that. So, supporting and that was, we heard from the caucus, well, where do you stand on the carbon tax? And I'll stand here and say we're against the carbon tax. And I think the bulk of the community is against the carbon tax. There may be 1 or 2 people that feel that, hey, okay, but a rebate system, why do you need to rebate me then? I don't need a rebate. And I understand that where the federal Conservative Party is saying, wow, this is somewhere that we want to stand. And certainly it's challenging, because it affects every municipality. be it urban or rural. Our rural neighbors are feeling the same. Running the graders down those gravel roads and trying to pave new roads is not cheap. We know that. We know that it cost us $600,000 from last year to this year for utilities alone for carbon tax. That's what we paid on carbon tax from our finance team. So it's got a huge impact on our community, and it has an impact on Kitscoty. It has an impact on Marshall, Lashburn, you name the community. It's got an impact.
Would you feel the same way if you were getting a rebate?
I think that it would depend on the rebate, and I'll be honest, because we know what it's costing. You know, people have asked us over the last number of years, what's part of the reason for the tax increase? So it's there, and yeah, and do we ever cover the whole amount? That's the problem. A rebate never covers the whole amount, because when everything you pick up, you know, I can get on, and I don't want to sound political, but inflation, what's driven inflation for the last number of years is carbon tax, because as people were tacking on and Maria would be able to speak to that as a business owner, every cost of, you know, meat's gone up, but also the carbon tax to take the meat from the rancher to the slaughterhouse to the processor to Cisco to her door. That's had 5 carbon taxes, let alone what the ranchers paid carbon tax on every time he's tried to raise that beef. So it's a huge factor in inflation. So yeah, there's multiple pieces to this.
So when you talk to the Conservative Party, they're telling you that you will never have to worry about a rebate because they are committed to getting rid of the carbon tax.
That's what I understand. And you've heard Pierre Poilievre speak very clearly about axe the tax.
And there's people that just don't believe that will happen.
Yeah, you know, and there's 2 parts to this that you can't say, and it's been tied together maybe more than it should be. Carbon tax and the environment. The environment is a piece in this puzzle, but let's have a logical and clear discussion about environment, and let's talk about carbon tax. But let's talk about carbon tax is the first thing, because it's challenging. You know, it's really hard because I read the news regularly, and there's places in the east that, yeah, they feel that this is the answer to the dilemmas. And I'm going, okay, but you can only replace so many vehicles with electric vehicles, electric buses, and things like that. The grid is only so capable. Now you need to bring in SaskPower and ATCO to talk about that, because that's a whole different perspective. But we live in a world, and you know, we talk about the world being a globe. Even Lloydminster is a bit of a globe, because there's multiple pieces that make our city a great place, and they're all intertwined. And if one starts to fall off, things aren't going to be as green as they say. It's going to be maybe a little browner, and things like that. So there's a lot of challenges that fit into this whole play. And, you know, helping our federal Conservative caucus members from Saskatchewan understand the challenges we have as municipal leaders, and, you know, hearing them as well, you know, and we're very fortunate. We're represented by 2 strong MPs. One on each side of the city, and you know, they sit on the same bench together in the opposition bench. And you know, this carbon tax is just one of many things we covered.
So it must be frustrating for you to meet with a Conservative caucus that could potentially be the next government, but right now has absolutely no say in what happens in our country.
Yeah,
and I say that from a citizen's point of view, where if you have a complaint and you want to take it up the ladder, you can take it to Rosemary Falk, you can take it to Shannon Stubbs. It goes nowhere. That's right. It dies with them.
Well,
you find that's
in
happening
essence,
now?
it dies. So
is it the same way with the city?
Yeah, I've asked our MPs to hand deliver letters to the government ministers across the way, and they have the pages in Parliament that carry that letter over. And Rosemary, in particular, said, "I watched him open it. He read it. Did I get a reply? No." And it's frustrating. So it is. And that's, you know, one of the challenges that's unique, because we do have a 3-government system in this country. There's the federal government, the provincial government, and the 2 mirror each other somewhat. That came from England in the creation of our laws, and then municipal government. And, you know, as municipal government, there's 7 of us elected, 6 with Councillor Fagning passing right now as council members. We all have our own political views, but at the end of the day, we work together for the betterment of the community. That's the goal of town council, city council, village council. where you move to the provincial and federal level, and you've chatted with Colleen and Garth in the past, that's where you really see the politics start to show up more, because it's a group. When I go back to the 2016 election, I didn't even know some of the people that I got elected with. In 2020, I knew them better from that perspective. But, when you're in a party system at the provincial and federal level, especially at the federal level, those people spend 6 months of their life living in Ottawa, side by side, working side by side, early mornings, late nights, caucus meetings, committee meetings, and things like that. So it is a whole different perspective that we run into, and our MPs are, they do a great job, but it is totally different in one way. They still represent people, but they represent a large swath of people, and try and get that view to carry forward and try and influence the government. I guess I'd like to say, as a municipal leader, we're closest to the people. We hear and see people quite regularly. It's got to be darn tough being a federal MP when you're gone for 6 months of the year, trying to do what you believe is right, hearing from constituents and solving their problems. But and in opposition, it is really tough. It is really, really tough.
It would change things a lot to have a Conservative government, and assuming that everything stays the same in Saskatchewan. Also want to ask you about policing in Lloydminster, because we've made a request for the RCMP to come on and talk. Crime seems to be up. When you get your reports, are you seeing crime as
so there's multiple ways. There's multiple crimes that are measured by the RCMP. So you've got they've got a number of categories, and some areas they are up, and other areas they're down. So that's the hard part. Personal crimes, I believe, are up, and crimes against individuals are down. That's just the quick, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but certainly bicycle thefts and items, and it's really challenging, because we talked about that with the federal caucus as well, members, crime. So we've got multiple pieces here. You've got the RCMP. They're trying to get staff back up, and that's hard, because they went through, the depot wasn't running at full capacity during COVID. It actually was shut down for a while. Retirements continue, and staffing up, and it's a challenge. So there's that piece of having enough RCMP officers. The RCMP arrests somebody, then they start the process, but they often get released, as we've heard about. And then it gets to the Crown, which is a different department of government. It's not the RCMP. So people say, well, the RCMP didn't do their job. RCMP work really hard at doing their job. But when somebody gets arrested and it goes to court, and the Crown prosecutor, for whatever reason, says, ooh, I'm going to throw this out, or as the RCMP are taking it to the Crown prosecutor, and the person says, that person robbed me, so they report the crime, the RCMP took their statement, but they need that person to come to court to testify, because that's the system that we have of that way. And people go, well, I'm not going to take time to go to court. Well, it gets thrown out of court. So the individual doesn't get prosecuted. So there's so many pieces. And then there's the correctional system, and that's another piece in itself. So there's multiple steps here that is frustrating for people, and it's frustrating for us, because we can, you simply, if we said, oh, we're going to put $500,000 more towards policing, when will we see those police officers? There's no clear answer from the RCMP how staffing is going to make out to get those staff members here. We have staff members on what they call a soft leave, soft vacancy, that maybe maternity, paternity, injuries, something like that. There's constant training going on, that members are away from the community getting training, which is very important. Then there's what they call hard vacancies, where someone's moved and we're waiting to get a replacement in. So this policing file is absolutely huge, and it's on the top of my desk, and I know we, as administration and council, we're looking at it continuously, but there's only certain pieces we can do, and the challenge is, and I'll use Maria, there's more than one restaurant. She knows that, and we all know that. There's only one service available for policing, and that's the RCMP. And we have to work with what we've been given and are supported by.
Are we short this summer? It seemed there was other agencies sending members.
So that's a great question, Maria. So as an example, the traffic section from what's called F Division, which is Saskatchewan. So each province has a division name or a letter to it. F Division came to town And those officers are paid for by SGI to decrease traffic violations. That's what their offenses, and that's who pays them. SGI pays the RCMP, and there was a Saskatoon City police officer, I believe, here, and they do specifically traffic. They were motorcycles, and I think they might have had a couple other vehicles, but they are specifically targeted traffic because SGI believes there's value in reducing traffic accidents, which there is, right? Because we know there's not just the vehicle loss, there's personal time loss and things like that. So I know people go, well, they were busy giving me a tent ticket, which is unlawful. So, I've had people ask me, so what's greater? And I go, well, if somebody commits murder, that's bad. But if somebody blows a stop sign and kills somebody, is that just as bad? Yeah, 2 people died. Totally different causes, but both because the law was broken. So it comes down to the laws. So you got provincial traffic laws, you got federal criminal code, and it's hard because I'd love to see more police officers. People get excited when the CN or CP police officers come to town. Hey, they have the power of law enforcement, and they do their job from that perspective. So it's a bit of it's tough. And to answer back to your question, yeah, we've definitely seen it and encouraged people to lock their bicycles. I've had people tell me they've had their bicycle stolen with a lock. So I encourage you to buy the best quality lock you can afford to try and slow them down. Working with the RCMP, working with bylaw, working with the both CN and CP police to try and do that. And we're going to have some ongoing conversations with the governments of Alberta about their sheriff's program, the Saskatchewan government with their marshals. We'll continue to try and find whatever law enforcement we can find to try and make our community a safer place.
So when the CN police come, and we saw, there was a gentleman sitting out there the entire week of the fair. Yeah. There was a gentleman out there. And we see a policeman from Saskatoon. There was one on a motorbike, I believe.
Yeah.
When they write tickets, who gets that money?
So I'm not going to have a clear answer for you because I need to check that to be exactly clear because SGI paid for them, but the ticket was issued in the city. Just when you get a ticket, any ticket, the city doesn't get the full amount of money, even if it's a city ticket. As an example, the provinces take, I believe it's up to 40% now for administrative fees. Yeah, that's gone up over time. So just because they do all the processing, they and all that. But I can't give you a firm answer. If it's CP police on their property, I believe they get the ticket. If you're trespassing, they would get the money if it was collected after they've paid the provincial government to process that ticket, because the justice system always falls to the province first. So that way, that perspective, if the Saskatoon police officer gave you a ticket, it would potentially either go to the government of Saskatchewan or to the city of Lloyd, and I'll have to get back to you for a firm answer on that one, because that one I'm not right up to date on when somebody else writes a ticket in our city. I want to say I think we get the proceeds, but I don't want to be, I can't confirm that for sure.
When we talked to Becky and Tyler and Keegan about crime in Lloydminster and about homelessness, they tell us that there's about 10 people that are responsible for that crime. What has to change to get those 10 people?
So one of the challenges the RCMP have worked on is what's called a prolific offender program, and they continue to look at that and work with it. The piece is sometimes those are due to addictions, and sometimes they're not. So if you're a prolific criminal offender and just stealing things, but it often is tied to organized crime, which is tied to drugs and other pieces to it. So it's trying to get those people off the street, get them convicted, and spending time in corrections rather than continuing to do what they're doing. And the challenge is that you get the top 10, then there's another 10 sometimes that are working their way up behind them, which is really challenging. So, that was discussed with the federal Conservative caucus as well. How are you going to deal with the justice system and the correction system? Because one of the questions I asked, and I didn't, they're still going to have to work away at an answer, is how are you going to put more people in jail when you haven't built any more jails? So the correctional system is full today. So if you're going to arrest more people, there's a trade-off there. So there's work to be done on all fronts. And I like I say, I don't envy the Conservative caucus because they're walking into a real storm. And I can't use the term what I describe it as, but it's a real storm coming at the federal level. And what's the answer? And it all takes money. Because you don't build a penitentiary for next to nothing. It's that, the facility has to be safe for both the guards and the inmates and do the job it's supposed to do. And they don't, like I say, we built a wastewater treatment plant and building a new event center and going, holy, I can't even imagine what a penitentiary is worth.
So when we travel across this country, we go to Edmonton or Toronto or anywhere, we're seeing the same homelessness issue. We're seeing more people that looks like living on the streets, whether it's St. Paul, whether it's Cold Lake, whether it's, anywhere around here or anywhere across the country, it seems to be an issue. Where does the municipality fall into? What is the municipality's responsibility when it comes to homelessness?
So that's a really good question, and I'll go back and start the process. The municipality has very little in the process other than, we're responsible to ensure there's policing services provided in our community. When it comes to human services and social services, those are provincial, followed by federal responsibility. The addictions and mental health and addictions, treatment for drugs, mental health and addictions fall under the provincial governments, respectively, followed by support from the federal government. Policing is a municipal/provincial matter because if you're not a city, and Lashburn and Kitscoty, Maidstone's got a detachment which is provincially funded, but the municipalities contribute a portion to that costing of their policing, as does Kitscoty and some of the on the Alberta side to the respective provinces. But policing, it basically falls to the feds because the RCMP are oversaw by the federal government. There are municipal police forces that answer to the municipality and to the residents to be the police service, but back to justice. So it's like an onion. There's multiple pieces to this, and you peel it off. But at the end of the day, we hear about it every day. I can't speak for council members directly, but I know that we all hear. We compare notes of when we hear from people, and that's a concern in the community. What can we do? We can create bylaws, but we don't have the ability to arrest somebody. We can issue a fine, but if they have no money, what's the use of giving somebody a fine? And then a curfew, that's been talked about. And I think Cold Lake is one place where people have said, well, is it working? I haven't had a chance to sit down and chat with the mayor to see if it is improving things that way. But, we have people that go to work at 5 in the morning here, 4 in the morning in the oil and gas industry and other industries. So, telling people, well, you're not supposed to be on the street at that time, that's what's the limiting factor? And then we get into the whole discussion, are we going to tell people what they can and can't do? Because that's exactly what I've heard for the last couple of years from people saying, you're not putting up a fence and limiting where we can go in the city. No, we're not. But what are you asking if other people are saying, well, we've got to control things? So it's a dangerous slice of what you're asking for and what people want on one side, but there's always the other side, if not a third side.
And speaking about the one side to the other, I wonder where we fall under the Alberta-Saskatchewan. That's always, and you don't need to get into that now because I think that probably
I think he wants to.
No,
that's a deep thing, but I just wonder with the policing and then the.
Yeah, it is. It affects everything that happens in this city. Once you move it past the municipal government, becomes a bit of a game or challenge, a struggle. There's many different words. We talk about being unique and we talk about challenges at the City Hall. That niche, because, inviting ministers to talk about healthcare, talk about policing, talk about how are we going to deal with this, because each province, when it moves strictly to the provincial border issue, then it changes. RCMP is an example. This is what really gets interesting. The RCMP in our city enforce both provincial laws, Saskatchewan and Alberta's traffic acts and things like that. The criminal code reads exactly the same in Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, right clear to Newfoundland and into the territories. But each province administers the court system. So our RCMP members have to file 2 sets of paperwork. If somebody commits a crime, that same individual commits crimes in both provinces, one after the other. They know there's a robbery going on on the Saskatchewan side. They chase the individual, arrest them in Alberta. By the time they've caught them up, they've already broken laws because they've fled from police and things like that. There's certain laws. They have to create 2 sets of files. So everything we do in our city is a little more complex. It is what it is. I go back and say, Reverend Barr, you could have landed in Marshall or you could have landed in Kitscoty, but darn it, you landed right where you landed and the border came. But it's something we live with. Our RCMP members, I like to tease our RCMP members, you're the best trained Mounties in the country. Absolutely. Because you understand laws on 2 sides, and that perspective, it affects us in healthcare and mental health and addiction, and that's everything that we're struggling with. It's a 2-province system. So can I blame it all on Saskatchewan? No, I can't blame it all on Alberta either. But what our intention is, and I appreciate council support and administration, we're trying to bring the 2 provinces together to understand Lloydminster is just a little different. And if we can do that, we've succeeded. We even got federal issues. We can talk about that some other day too, that impact us as a bi-provincial city.
So then can we assume that the Alberta government and the Saskatchewan government both pay the RCMP in Lloydminster?
Well, so we receive a funding grant from the government of Alberta for policing services. When we moved the detachment, or when the council today moved the detachment from Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan withdrew their funding for special policing services, and we're continuously having negotiations and discussions with Saskatchewan to support special policing programs such as Crime Reduction Unit that we have in our city, but we could sure use the support of the Saskatchewan government to support that program, and that will be discussed during the upcoming provincial election. You'll see a wish list come from the city of Lloydminster to the government of Saskatchewan, particular because it is an election year, to help people understand and ask that question of the candidates arriving at their door, saying, can we count on the government of Saskatchewan, or your government, if you form government or in government, to help reinstate that funding that every other community gets for special policing initiatives, because we have them here. We talked about the prolific offender program, we've got the crime reduction unit, we've got the student resource officers. I can just go through a list of items that we do that not every RCMP detachment has.
Okay, so let me just get this straight. I just want to confirm it was on the detachment was on the Saskatchewan side, and Alberta was giving funding.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan was giving funding.
Yeah.
Then it moved to the Saskatchewan side.
The Alberta side.
The Alberta side.
Yeah.
And Saskatchewan said, well, now that it's in Saskatchewan, it doesn't matter to us anymore.
Yeah, because
it's not our business anymore.
Well, part of the reason was, and I can say this because I've worked through this file a fair amount, the Saskatchewan Police Act. They're following the Police Act. That's the answer I receive. So we're open to accepting support in whatever form they want to do it. If they want to call it a special grant, we'd be open to accepting a special grant from the government of Saskatchewan anytime to meet those special needs in our community.
But I feel like you could be stickler on that in everything. Healthcare, everything. It could be. Why choose just the law enforcement to emphasize this?
Yeah, it's because of it, and I can say this again in my work with SUMA. We know the Police Act is over 30 years old. Policing has changed. Talking to police officers of today and former police officers, mental health and addiction have just skyrocketed in the last 30 years that they're dealing with, and they don't have that training from that perspective. So, the raising that up and saying, hey, we need to change the Police Act. SUMA's already prepared a white paper, research paper on it, and we've invested to help bring the facts and some of those things to light for the government, because the government's it's not gonna happen overnight, but they want to do their research and get input. So we've already started that, and we'll continue to do that, because as municipal leaders, that's part of our challenge, is to help inform our provincial leaders, because they're dealing with healthcare and education and highways and other things. Some of these things, they know they're on their desk, but we're just trying to elevate it.
The airport. What is happening with a carrier at the airport now that WestJet is gone?
So we received some money. Now here's one of those things from the government of Alberta. They had a grant that they provided 10 airports, I believe it was, in Alberta, and we were successful in getting support from the government of Alberta to update our master plan and do some research and provide information to air carriers that have been identified that are potential carriers to Lloydminster and say, here's our numbers. We've got some solid numbers. Here's our track record of history. This is where people have indicated they have an interest, and we're working through that. So the report should be coming to council hopefully in the next month, and there's been ongoing discussions, I understand, with some air carriers, but we want to make sure that we present the best information to those air carriers because they have to make a business decision. It'd be no different than when Maria and Spiro and family decided to move. I remember that. I was here when you guys built that new building and you're in a new location. It's no different when an air carrier wants to come and say, we're coming to Lloyd. And we went through this, right? We were all excited. WestJet came and some things changed. We want to make sure that carrier that comes has the best information to provide the best possible service they can to meet the majority of the community's needs. We're not going to be able to meet everybody's needs. I'll use the airport as an example. I read through the study and the reports, and people said, well, I'd like to fly to Vegas. I'd like to fly to Puerto Vallarta. Well, folks, we don't have an international airport. We don't have the numbers to generate to have the security and the infrastructure to support being an international airport. But can we get you to potentially Calgary, Edmonton, Fort Mac, Saskatoon, Regina? Yeah, those
and
are
do
all.
those well.
And do those well. Absolutely,
Right.
Maria.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. You're going to have a connection. There's no question. We just don't have the numbers of people. And, you know, like we could, there might be one, well, we know there's a flight out every year. Kurt seems to lead that charge, that there's a plane load of people that fly to Puerto Vallarta or somewhere nice and warm, which I appreciate.
Two coming this year.
Two? Oh, there you go. Things are picking up. But those two flights are not enough to justify because of the infrastructure. That's the biggest piece. But what can we do well with what we have, and what improvements do we have to make to take it to that next level? But we're not there, folks. I wish we were an international airport, but we just don't have the population and the number of people flying and the destinations to sustain itself, because those flights are daily or weekly, and that takes a lot of people.
Do you have a timeline? Would you have a timeline?
Well, we're shooting to get it reestablished as quick as we can. I won't say that we're going to have it back by October 1st, November 1st. It will be as soon as we can. We just, we're still not there. Once we enter into some negotiations and get down to the final, and we'll keep the community informed as to how that's playing out from that perspective. That report will come forward to City Hall and City Council, so you'll see it and know what's been discussed and what we're hearing and all those pieces. And there was a lot of community engagement, and I appreciate everybody that spoke up and said, what about taking the airport to that next level? And talking to NAV Canada, you know, they said, well, we have a shortage of pilots. We have a lot of young pilots flying commercial right now. Those young pilots have certain requirements until they get enough airtime. You could make improvements to the airport and potentially maybe land 10 more flights a year total after spending $2 million in navigational stuff. So is that the answer? I don't think it is. That's $200,000 a flight for 10 flights, basically, to get $2 million. So those are things that we're going to make sure that we provide as much information. We can't be a Calgary or an Edmonton, but we are Lloydminster, and we'll do the best job we can to be the best Lloydminster airport we can provide.
That's all questions I have. Do you have anything, Maria?
I just wanted to ask you, a transit system here, and I know we've that's been an ongoing thing, and you know, I've been to centers maybe a little bigger, you know, maybe on par with us. What are we looking at for a transit system?
So the report came to council, it was received. Said he gave us some options. There was 4 options that were presented in the report, and now the next step is to start to price those options out and see what it's going to cost, because it will have an impact on every taxpayer in the city if we move to a public transit system. You know, the debate, there was some great debate in council, and I know there's been a debate in the community. Who's going to pay for it, and what's the benefit? Because no transit system in Canada, if in the world, maybe I'll say in Canada for sure, breaks even. let alone makes money. So they're all taxpayer supported. So what is the best solution for the least possible taxpayer investment to get there? And that I don't have that answer today. We have a report. We're going to be chatting with administration some more, and they'll be doing some inquiries. We looked around. We've talked to a lot of communities. When I got elected in 2016, I had worked in across Western Canada with one of the oil and gas companies, and there was a community that's much smaller than us. They went with 2 one-ton buses and started the route. Then the federal government came along and bought them new buses because that was their green initiative and public transit. But then they had to buy 3 buses because you have to have a spare bus, and that's one of the challenges. Whatever we do, we got to invest in this 3rd bus or 5th bus. If we have 2 routes and 4 buses, you've got to have a spare bus, because if the bus breaks down, people are going to be standing there going, where's my bus? Minus 40, plus 40, whatever the temperature is. So there's all these pieces. Do we need bus shelters? And, what the routes, and that was contemplated and looked at. So my biggest fear is that we start it and it doesn't get used. And I can't speak on behalf of council members, but that's my personal fear. We go ahead and make the plunge. Do we do a pilot project? Then people will say, well, you're doomed to fail because you're going to make the pilot so it doesn't work. There's challenges that we've got on both sides. So we don't have a solution yet, Maria. And, I hear from people that say they would use a bus. They're willing to pay so much. Are they willing to pay a little bit more? And can we work the numbers a little bit? Because we're looking at a couple % tax increase to support that. It's that simple. You don't run buses. You don't hire drivers from that perspective. And, Councillor Fagnan, bless his heart, he very near and dear transportation in this city. And he didn't have the perfect answer either. I know he had ideas, and they rest with him now today, and it's too bad because what is that magic solution again made in Lloydminster to solve a challenge that is here, and it's going to continue to grow as we continue to grow. But what levers do we pull? Because like I say, I've talked to a lot of mayors about public transit, and the best advice I got is stay away from it. And I'm going, well, that's easy enough to say, but it is hard. When your city is asking questions, and you as a business owner, like you pay personal taxes, you pay taxes as a business owner. What's it worth to be able to get your staff to work if they don't have that money? And Kurt, you've worked in the restaurant industry. You know that for some people that's the entry level. So your wages aren't. You may not be able to afford a vehicle yet.
Radio is even worse.
Okay, radio's even worse. So honestly, and the bottom line is that there's other people that say, well, go out and get a job and get a better job and buy a vehicle, and our city is so unique because we've got great incomes in the oil and gas industry. We've got good incomes in a lot of other jobs, and then you've got entry-level jobs because and those salaries reflect that. And people need to get around. Students need to get around. But will they use the bus service? Those are all questions, and we're going to have more conversations with the college. We need to have some conversations with the high schools, and we're going to be back to the business community through the Chamber of Commerce and others, and say, all right, if you want it, we do need to have a tax increase. And I as an elected official, I need to say, okay, are you going to support that? Because I know there's people that have already been challenged by what we've had to do just back to carbon tax and all the other costs that have gone up.
Maybe something that comes up this November.
It might be something that comes up this November, and I think always open to that discussion. Again, we need to have as broad of input from people so that they understand, and we also have to be sure we provide the information. How much, and I say a tax increase, is it 1%, 2%? That's what we need back from administration to do the research that they need to do and say, we've talked to some providers, this is what we're looking at to run this service. That's the number.
To be accurate with
to be very accurate with the numbers as to what that service potentially could cost to run this level of service. And it's always hard. It's no different. I've never found somebody that's willing to accept a lesser level of service, and I think you understand that very well in the restaurant business. You set a bar, and that's the delivery bar you want to be at, and you always hope to exceed it. It'd be no different with our bus service. If we go to half-hour pickups, and we move it back to an hour, are people going to be happy with that? Because if you've got to now ride the bus and be at work a half hour before rather than 15 minutes before,
True.
is that going to work in your schedule? Or are
Right.
you going to just say, I'll just call a cab? And we know there's the ride-sharing apps continue. We hear more and more about that. Is that still an option? It's something that I'd like to explore to be sure that we've covered off all the avenues before we make a commitment of buying 2 or 4 or 5 buses. That'd be 3 or 5 buses. And where do we store them? Again, city's got some facilities, but those other pieces, is it directly run by the city? Is it operated by a contractor? There's just so many pieces to this, and it's just things you don't solve overnight.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Always appreciate the opportunity, and it's great to be able to share these things with the community, and just encourage people, if you've got questions, reach out to your council members and myself. We'll do the best we can to answer them, but also, hey, those council meetings are online, and the GPC meetings, governance priority, where we share information shared with council and the public. And heck, you can, just like your podcast, Kurt, you could spend a lot of time watching Kurt Price or the council of the city of Lloydminster.
Well, we hope you'll spend time watching Live with Kurt Price. That's why we brought Maria in. We need some sex appeal, for crying out loud. So
Looking good.
and we'll be back with you tomorrow, and back with you talking about the Frenchman Butte Museum Festival that's coming up this Sunday.